All right, sorry for the little delay. We were just having some technical difficulties, which I'm sure never happens to any of you when you're trying to either present or teach your students, right? That never happens to anybody. All right, so welcome. My name is Carolyn Skibba, and I'm here to share with you a topic that is so near and dear to my heart, and it's about how we have been able to use mobile devices at our school to really amplify student learning and to offer them new opportunities to create, share, and connect, and to truly empower students in the classroom. So I wanted to tell you a little bit just quickly about my school. I teach at Burly School, which is a Chicago public school in the Lakeview neighborhood. It's an elementary school. I've been there for about 15 years. And we serve about 575 students in grades pre-K through 8 and have a curricular focus on literature, writing, and technology. So this is helpful background to know when I start showing you our student examples, because you will notice that a lot of our student artifacts really focus on the love of literature and around student reading and writing as well. We do have a one-to-one iPad program at our school. We're currently one-to-one in grades 1, 5, and 6, and we have a 1-to-2 ratio in grades 2, 3, and 4. And since we had the very fortunate opportunity to be in the first round of the Chicago Public Schools iPad grant in 2010, that means that we have really been tinkering with this for a long time, exploring things that work, finding out a lot of things that don't work. We had the iPad 1s at the beginning, which really curtailed our creative opportunities, not having the camera. But at this point, we have really settled on a host of tools that we feel like are really supporting the kind of learning that we want to see in our classrooms. And so I'm here to share some of those with you today. The most important thing to us at Burly is that we're really using technology to look for ways to elevate student learning and to go beyond what was possible before when we had just traditional tools in the classroom. And so one of the models we use to guide us is Dr. Ruben Puentedura's SAMR model, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which is really a continuum of technology use, starting with substitution at the bottom, where you're essentially doing the same kind of learning tasks and the same kind of learning activities just on a different platform, all the way to the top where you have redefinition, where you're actually making entirely new kinds of learning possible. And so one of the things that we have found is that our single subject apps that we started with, we were using those to have students practice different types of skills. But the action that the students were participating in using those apps was very much directed by the apps. It was really the app developer who was deciding what the students were going to do, what they were going to learn, how they were going to proceed through this learning experience. And in that way, the learning was very finite. That doesn't mean we never use those apps. Of course, we have students still practicing math facts and things like that. But we have found that when we're able to integrate more multi-purpose creativity apps into the classroom and do work that's really more product and project-oriented for the students are directing the learning. The students are directing the use of the technology. And in that way, the possibilities with what they can do on the iPad really become infinite and really take on a tone that is really transformative in terms of what we're able to see with the students. And then going even further beyond that, taking what they create and sharing it with other people adds that audience piece and gives the students even additional purpose to what they're learning and creating. And so taking even just a further step back from the classroom for a minute, I think if you think about this question, what is technology for? In our own lives, we would all have a lot of different answers to that question, some of which are very proactive and productive, some of which are just kind of sitting on the couch with our Netflix, whatever it might be. But I feel like this question, the answers to this question really shift in some circles when you ask, what is educational technology for? And I know that many of you may work in districts where oftentimes the answer is things like this: content delivery, skill practice, and testing. And if this is a direction that your district has taken, obviously those are things that this is a reality in our lives that we have to deal with. But I would urge you to push beyond having these sort of passive activities in the classroom that are really more of a prepackaged learning experience for the students into more of the creativity realm. And so that's what I'll be sharing with you a bit today. And then going even a bit further beyond that, asking what education's for and what the nature of learning really is. And so when I think back to those, to the content delivery and the skill-based practice and the testing and things along those lines, I feel like the answer to the question of what is the nature of learning is that it's finite, it's scripted. Learning is predetermined. Learning is something that's very orderly. It's something that can be delivered to people. It's something where the learner is passive. It's something that can be packaged and shared. And I think we all know from our experience with students that this is not what learning looks like in our classrooms. We don't see students just passively receiving information. We know that when students are actually learning and are engaged in what they're learning, that they're curious, they're passionate, they're active. The process of learning may be nonlinear. It'll have bumps along the way. It'll have peaks and valleys. It'll have successes and failures. Students will be inspired and they'll have a sense of wonder. And so when we consider the question of what educational technology is for, and if this is part of the answer in your setting, I would ask you to think about ways where it doesn't have to be the whole answer, and where you can go past this into ways that really fit more the model that we all know that students experience when they're really passionate about discovering, learning, and sharing what they know. And so for me, the educational technology at our school is less about teaching the kids, and it's more about empowering the kids to teach others, setting up the role in the classroom so that the students aren't just receiving information from the technology, but they're actually able to be teachers of others, to be experts, to create work that has real meaning beyond just what's happening in the classroom. And so the three pieces for us that are making the biggest difference are the three pieces I'll be sharing with you today. To be able to have students create, to have students take what they've created and share it with others, and then adding this piece where they're connecting. They're not just sharing it out there and wondering if anyone sees it or if anyone noticed, but they're getting feedback from other people and they're involved in an interactive cycle of learning and sharing and inspiration. So in terms of creativity, I mean, why do people create things? People create things out of joy, out of passion, out of interest, out of inspiration. And in the classroom, when we see students creating, they're actively engaged in thinking. They're making decisions about what it is they want to share and who it's for. When students create, they're communicating. They're asking themselves, how can I express what I know? And who's going to read it? And how can I make it really matter for my audience? They invest in their learning in a different way because they're making something that has greater meaning. And again, just this joy piece, the fact that students who are creating in the classroom are happy. Students who are creating in the classroom are experiencing that joy of discovery and of making things that are wonderful that really show what they know. And so I want to share with you just some different examples and tools that we use at Burly to have students create. And one of the simplest is just to have students create images. And so I'm sure everybody has a favorite painting app or a favorite drawing app. We use Drawing Pad at Burly a lot, just because it's so flexible. It has so many tools. It allows students to import photos and different stickers. But students can use images just to express their wondering. We were having, or questions that they have. We were having a conversation in technology class about, you know, what are you wondering about technology? What are some things you're curious about? And so students were creating a range of images in third grade to show that. Creating an image to show a mathematical story or a mathematical problem. Creating an image to show a result of some inquiry that students had done about Native Americans. This is a first grade example where students are creating an image to demonstrate some new learning. And I also just wanted to point out that in the corner of a lot of these slides, I have the name of a colleague of mine. And one of the things that's very important to me, since I'm the technology specialist at my school, I work really closely with a very incredible team. And I certainly in no way want to represent that this work is all solely mine or that these are all my ideas. I work with these amazing colleagues. And at the end, I'll share with you a Twitter list for those of you who might want to get to know some of these people a little bit better. But this is from Ms. Larios' first grade classroom for their Native American unit. This is an image to represent an abstract idea of what is it like when people collaborate or learn together. And so they're trying to represent that the ideas flow from person to person when people are communicating and working together. And then taking it to the global level. What is it like to discover with people around the world? Creating an image to represent that idea. Creating a diagram related to inquiry. Creating an illustration. This is actually a technique that our fifth graders in Katie Mataris' class pioneered and realized they needed to create work that had illustrations in it, but they didn't want to violate copyright. And so they said, you know, Ms. Mataris, we could just take a photo off the internet, stamp it, and then trace over it in Drawing Pad. It's our own drawing, but we're just using this for a little boost for tracing. And we actually realized that was the sneaky genius of fifth graders. And it was a really awesome idea because, again, we want to encourage people to practice, students to practice good digital citizenship and to be able to, but also to be able to publish work without just borrowing images from the internet. So we thought that was crafty. This is an example from my friend Kristen Zemke's class, where it's an image to represent a love of a particular book. The student loved this book about hermit crabs. And so again, it's not about making a cute decoration with the book. although it is very cute. It's about the student saying, I want to communicate to someone that I loved this book, that I read this book, that this book meant something to me, that I want somebody else to read it too. And she's doing that through the imagery. And so one of the things that we're excited about with imagery is that, especially with young learners, it can be a great way for them to express an idea that they're not yet ready to express in writing. Taking those images and then putting them into collages with pic collage. Again, you see our school's focus on literature coming through. This is fourth graders creating collages to represent who they are as readers and what they love, and adding text to include what genres they read in and what books they're really passionate about. And again, the smiles, I know the smiles again can be construed as decoration, which they certainly are, but also having kids understand that idea that a 4-star book or a 5-star book, and this is an idea from my friend, again, Kristen Zemke, who teaches first grade, that the smiles mean something. It's not just about being cute. It's about, did I rate it 3 smiles or 5 smiles? It's actually a system that means something, and being able to use the images to communicate. And so going further beyond just creating images, one of the things we're excited about, we use this app a lot actually, Sonic Pics, so that students can create slideshows and podcasts that are narrated and start to be able to communicate their thinking, not just through the pictures, but also with their voice. So this is from Kristen's class. They were doing an inquiry about bats, and she had just read a bat book aloud to them and wanted to have them share some of their new learning.
Can I do a recording about bats? Bats can live in trees, caves, and houses. Bat moms can have over 50 babies.
That's not actually true.
And she carries all of them to find their food on. So she finds the food for them, they drink her milk. Baby bats can't fly. They have to be like a few weeks older to fly. So they have to be like the mommy bats. Bye.
So again, this is a child who just had this book read aloud to her, and she had all these new facts and information to share, and this was a really accessible way. You can see she made the artwork in drawing pad, and then she just pulled it into Sonic Pics and was able to flip through and record that. So she could now share this to teach someone else something new about bats, even though the 50s babies thing is a little bit questionable. But the other piece is that it provides some important assessment information for Kristen to know that, okay, well, she picked up on some of the facts and info and some of the things she didn't really represent factually, so we can go back and revisit those issues later. This is a slideshow that a student made, a podcast a student made to show his knowledge of nonfiction features in creating a book.
My name is Christian, and I'm writing a book about iPads. Table of contents shows you where to go or which page you are on. Labels tell you information, and it tells you about it. Glossary. The author wants you to know them and their bold, italic words.
So again, think about what the second grader has just done. This is from my friend Begonia Cowan's class. What he's just done is not only has he provided some really interesting information for the teacher about how well he understands those nonfiction features, but he's also created a resource that could be used for other students to teach them how to create, how to use nonfiction features in their writing. This is the same tool. This is a kindergartner publishing a physical book on paper. And so this is one of our more low-tech but also very exciting ways that kids are able to use technology to create something new, but also to extend their reach beyond what's in their classroom.
How to make cereal. First, you get dough. Then you put some toppings on. Then you put some fruit. Then you get a bowl and put your cereal. Then you pour the milk. Then you get a fork and a spoon. Now are you ready to eat your cereal?
You know it's serious cereal at her house when you need a fork and a spoon. So this is a tool that we use often to have students publish physical things that they've created and be able to themselves verbally as well as through the pictures. This is a video book review created by a first grader in iMovie.
This is also system, a very fascinating book. It's the book called Pics. I love the book Pics. you ever look at the sky at night and see the awesome planet? This is the book Planet, and this is our working. If you want to get this Stump Your Parents page, you're going to have to get Planets, the book of Planet. We recommend this book. It's so awesome. Planet is a book that's awesome. Even about Planet, the book Planet, is that 1 million books can fit inside the sun. It's a graphic book, and my favorite thing about the book is this page. So get the book.
All right, and so this is what sharing that love of books and creating something to So I don't know if anyone's ever tried to teach book trailers to students. Has anyone ever tried this before or done this with kids? So I find it really extremely difficult. I did this with the 8th graders last year, and the layers of different comprehension strategies that students have to apply. It took place in our classroom in Chicago as well as a conversation. It took place in Iceland. What are we going to show them? How are we going to understand our different towns? What are we going to show one another so that we So other things that we have students creating, animation and tasks. So this is a math story by first grade. So again, the reason we use Green Chomp A is because it's free, and B because it gives you a nice link so that you can share that link with other people, and those videos become work that students can use to access a broader audience. There are a million other screencasting apps that might be a little funky sometimes, but the happening where students and really sort of think through the process and narrate it, right? It's sort of get. This is a third grade video also using Green Chomp. another third grader about different types of levers much more than any written artifact that you have prepared or created. And this is one last animation. This is about what is a burly reader.
I'm going to tell you about a burly reader. These are some things burly readers do. First off, they're in the zone. Whenever they're in the zone, they're reading like crazy. They never stop. Even if you have to ask them a question, they will probably not answer the first time, the second time, or even the third. Second of all, they are happy and joyful. Because whenever they have free time, they pick up a book and start reading. And will never stop until they have to go to sleep. Finally, they are imaginative, because whenever they're reading, they feel like they're in the book, and they don't go through pages doing nothing and not understanding. And that's what makes a burly reader. Thanks for watching.
All right, so those are some of the many things that we have our students creating. But again, if they just create it and submit it to the teacher, I don't think that that student would have invested so much effort in teaching other people about levers if he hadn't known that he was trying to teach actual other third graders how different types of levers work. And the same with Leo and his portrait of a burly reader there. That wasn't an assessment piece for the teacher, although she certainly is going to look at that and say, how are we doing with our reading culture and with our expectations and habits around reading? But that's something that he wanted to use to convey, to tell people about Burly School. And what is Burly School like, and what do we value as a reading community? And so having that audience piece and being able to share it is pretty critical in terms of elevating what students are able to do. So some of our favorite sharing tools, we use KidBlog for all kinds of things. And this is the third graders blog where you can see they've all posted their videos of how different types of simple machines work. So we were trying to make a teaching piece about how do simple machines work that other people could access and use as a resource. And so one of the things we do on KidBlog is we're having kids tag things in different categories so that as their desire and ability and skill for creating and teaching other people's grows, other people can access the right kind of content that they're looking for. So if they want to learn about science, they can go to our blog and click science. If they want to know about our thinking and our work around technology, they can go to the technology section. So by using that categories feature, we never used that till this year. I don't know why not. It's the greatest thing. I'm pretty excited about it. So it's very handy for kids to be able to find the kind of content they want and not just end up with this long string of stuff that's all muddled together. They can actually navigate through those different categories. And so through KidBlog, the students can share their images, they can share the videos they create, they can share any of the media products that we were just taking a look at. Edmodo is another tool that we sometimes use for sharing within the school. And so this is where we're trying to express some ideas about technology and communication through imagery. And so they were posting it to Edmodo for their classmates to comment on. And then if it is possible also to take those Edmodo posts and make them public. And so the teacher can go through and select different posts to put onto a public web page, again, expanding the audience beyond the classroom. Padlet. So Padlet is it used to be Wall Wisher. Did anyone use it when it was Wall Wisher? And it didn't work that well on the iPad at first, and it was kind of clunky and strange and mysterious. Padlet is now working so great on the iPad, and I'm very, very excited about it. And so this was a collaborative web page on Padlet. So I set up a page at padlet.com. I actually set up 5 or 6 pages, and the students were teaching, this is for a global collaboration we're doing with some kids in Belgium and Canada, and they wanted to tell a little bit about our school. So they brainstormed some categories. Well, we want to tell them why our school is special. We want to tell them what kids and books. We want to tell them about our hobbies. We want to tell them about school lunch. I was like, ooh, are you sure you want a whole page on school lunch? So we kind of like decided to leave that one to the side. And so students went around and scanned the QR codes for these pages, and then they could just double tap the screen and upload their own photograph, collage, illustration. It does also work with media and video, but that can get a little bit clunky. This is another example of Padlet. This is a rainforest mammals page connected to fourth grade inquiry. In both of our fourth grade classrooms, the students wanted to sort of pool their knowledge about the different animals they were learning about. And so again, they were just choosing one incredible fact and creating an illustration that showed what that incredible fact was. If they were talking about webbed feet, for example, they probably wouldn't show the whole animal. They would zoom in on those feet and really apply that nonfiction understanding that they have. But then these can also be made public, so the students can collaboratively create something together. This one is laid out differently from the one before it, because this is the stream view, so they don't end up all stacked on top of each other. So that's actually a handy setting that I would recommend. I think Google Drive and Dropbox are sort of underrated as sharing tools. And this is our first graders library, our kindergartners library of published work. So you can see these are the how-to books. You just saw the one about cereal. But we've put them all in a Google Drive because those kids, they don't have accounts. They don't have blogs yet. They're 5. And so, what we did do is we set up just a big shared Google Drive where the work can be uploaded, and then we can make that public and share those links with families. We also take the QR codes for the individual books, tape them to the front of the students' books, and so that way, if you really want to have an experience where you can hear the child read his or her writing, which again, at kindergarten, a lot of it's invented spelling, and you may not be able to experience the text as the author intended, being able to go in and scan that book and to be able to hear the child read their work is pretty powerful for the kids. And so Google Drive and Dropbox both allow you to get a link to media files and to other types of work that you can then share or distribute with other people. And I wanted to share a little bit about AudioBoo just for a minute, because this is an app that's also changed recently, and it does have one tragic flaw, which I'll tell you in just a minute. But the cool thing about AudioBoo, this is work that kindergartners did independently, where these were their, they have big posters in the hallway, big murals, where they're sharing the results of their inquiry on penguins. And so they were learning about penguins, and they have sentence strips and facts and paintings and illustrations. The kids went out into the hall, they snapped a photo of the important feature on the mural that they know about, and then they recorded their voice telling about it. And it was so simple, and it was so quick, and it was so easy, and it all shows up on this cute board where it's very interactive and very approachable for kids to be able to find the content they're looking for. The tragic flaw is that you can't turn off comments for the public. And so just bear in mind that like all of these sharing tools, and we'll talk about safety in just a minute, but all of these sharing tools have a lot of promise, and they also have potential pitfalls. And so it's important with this tool to know that you would have to have the comment notifications emailed to you so that you could clean up any objectionable comments that might appear. And then finally, just using a QR code. I know I talked about this with the kindergarten books, but being able to just post these around the building. Again, if you're in an environment with iPads or you have parents coming in who have their smartphones with them, being able to make your school an interactive environment and to have people be able to scan physical work in the building and be able to hear from the kids and be able to hear from the kids about what they know is a pretty powerful thing. And so we have started using QR codes throughout our building just to offer additional access to student work for people who are physically at our school. And we use qrstuff.com to make our codes. And so finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the connectedness piece, because you know, again, it's great to share it, but you always want to hear something back from your audience. You want to know that somebody heard what you're saying, that somebody has seen and experienced your work, and to have that two-way conversation, and that's where connectedness can be so important for kids. And so on KidBlog, obviously the commenting feature there is very, very easy for teachers to moderate if needed. And so this was an intro post that a third grader last year wrote to let our friends in Iceland know a little bit about us, and then they received a comment from this child in Iceland who was just sharing some info about himself, and just participating in this really quick exchange really told them a lot, not just about their blogging buddies, but also about the other culture that we were learning about. Connecting on Edmodo, this is something we talked a lot about with the kids this year, is how can you create comments that are really extending the conversation and aren't just compliments. You're not just saying, cool, nice, good. This was when we were practicing giving good feedback. And so we didn't want people to just say, I like it, it looks neat. We were asking the kids to try to interpret the message of the picture. And that tells the creator of that work, wow, people really stopped and looked at what I made. My audience really thought about it. My audience is really wondering what it is I meant, and they're trying to understand what I was trying to convey. And so that's very different from a student sitting there coloring by themselves or creating a picture. Now they're actually communicating with an audience and hearing back from that audience. Did you understand what I was saying? Are you part of this conversation and a part of this learning with me? And so the student did indeed make a picture that was about global communication, and obviously his peers were able to pick up on that. And so some of the things that we have found that really help us be successful when it comes to having kids create, share, and connect at our school is to really start simply. We definitely, I mean, we're a pre-K through 8 building. We have some people who are innovators who are teaching me things all the time. And we have some people who are pretty hesitant about the technology, and it's a stressful experience. And they're just kind of unsure how to start. And so starting with one workflow that you like, and then just going deeper with it and finding new ways to create and share and communicate is a very excellent way to get started. So one of the things that I'm getting started in a couple of classrooms at Burly now is the use of just drawing pad and Padlet. So how can we share information that we know in a collaborative space? How can we ask questions and wonder together through our drawings in a collaborative space? How can we recommend books to one another by making a beautiful visual book review and then putting it in a collaborative space? So it's not so much about using the greatest number of tools and apps and gizmos. It's about saying, what is the meaning of sharing in my classroom, and how does student learning become different and become transformed when the kids are able to create and share? And you don't have to have a lot of apps to do that. You can really just start with a couple of very simple things and explore the different avenues that kids can take in terms of having greater authenticity and audience for their learning. Another really easy workflow is ScreenShot to KidBlog, because with ScreenShot you get a link and you post it on your blog. All right, so you made a video to retell this story, post it on your blog. You made a video to show me a math problem that you want other classmates to try to solve, post it on your blog. You made a video to recommend some fabulous books or to explain a science concept, post it on your blog. So again, it's about going deeper with the content and with the understanding, not so much about having lots of cool tools. And so the apps that we use they have to do one of two things. They have to share either to the camera roll, or they have to provide me with a link. Because one thing that I can tell you we're probably not going to do is spend a lot of time downloading a bunch of files, uploading them to a separate space, figuring out a way to share them, and I know none of you have time for that either. And that is one way where Google Drive and Dropbox can actually be your best friend, because you can upload almost anything there and then get a link to it, but that can be kind of an involved process, especially for younger students. So these two are really your best friends in terms of making sharing really simple. One of the things that I think is so critical for success in any aspect of teaching and learning, as we all know, is to really explicitly model and demonstrate for the kids. And so as the kids are creating, not just saying, all right, well, we want you to take a picture of your book cover and decorate it, but really saying, who is your audience? Who do you want to really love this book? Who do you want to read it? Who do you want to understand levers better? Who do you want to hear this story about your life? What's your purpose? What are you trying to share with them? Do you want to persuade them to read this book? Do you want to inspire them to learn more about history? What's your objective with what you're creating? And so once you know those things, how are you going to choose what you're going to show, and how can you show it effectively? So really modeling those questions for kids and helping them over the years to really refine how they see themselves as digital creators and people who are authors in many different media. And so along with the explicit modeling, really talking to kids about communication. And this helps you set a strong foundation for kids to be able to comment purposefully, but saying, well, what is communication? Why do we communicate with other people to learn? Why is that important? Why when you sit and talk with a friend about a book you're reading, does your understanding of that book become deeper and richer? And why does working in a group project help you be more inspired and more passionate about what it is that you're creating? And so really explicitly teaching kids about communication and the role that it plays in their lives, how feedback can really extend people's thinking and help them to be more powerful learners and more powerful creators of work, but just modeling all throughout how you can build this culture that's very, very productive and very focused on learning through the opportunities students have to create and share. And then, as I was talking about earlier, to have students really using comments to continue the conversation of learning, not just to make a quick one-off comment. I mean, kids love to see their comments on the screen. They love to say, there's this one boy who just wants to go through and say, great, on everybody's blog post. Great, 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 great. and it means nothing. So it's great that he's excited, and it's great that he wants to participate, but he's not supporting anybody's learning by doing that. He's not showing them that he paid attention. He's not showing them that he listened. He's not showing them that he's thinking about anything. He's just on some sort of weird comment race. So again, bringing it back to that purpose. Why do we share? What are we trying to teach? Who are we trying to communicate with? Safety and audience are really important pieces for us as well. We never have students use a photograph of themselves online anywhere if it's going to be identified by their name. We use a me creator, like for the we, but it's me. I don't know if you're like a we family, you probably know about that. I don't have that at my house, but not putting students' last names on there, not having them identify their pictures. As I said, these are just artwork that students made in Keynote so that they could have some images to post, again, in lieu of posting a photograph of themselves. And this is something, again, we start talking about digital citizenship really early. How can you make something personal without giving away too much? And again, just to moderate if needed, looking through settings on a site like KidBlog and saying, well, am I ready to have the public comment on these blogs, or do I just want my class to comment? Well, if my class is commenting, maybe I could also have Miss King's class comment. Well, maybe now I'm ready to let the public comment, but I want to moderate the comments as they come in and kind of see how this goes. So really figuring out how much control and safety that you think you need in order to create a space that's going to be really positive and productive. And as a final note, and this isn't really a strategy, it's just a really passionate belief that I hold about why we use technology in our classrooms, is to empower your kids and to really give them those opportunities to use tools flexibly and to create work that has real meaning and then to share it with an audience. Because when they invest in their learning that way, I think the sky's absolutely the limit for our students in their classrooms when they're using technology. So thank you very much. This is the code if you want to follow some of my amazing colleagues at Burly School. This is a Twitter list. And then the resources from the session will be posted online at this URL. So thank you.